I call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good morning and welcome to everyone for this June 6, 2023 meeting of the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners. Welcome to summer. It's here. The bang with the humidity. So, with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting proposed agenda. I have not been made aware of any changes. I'm looking for a motion.
So move.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Gray.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Moving on, our agenda item number 2 is that of our open forum. Keisha.
Yes, we have one person signed up, Madam Chair,
Okay.
and that would be Kari Watkins of St. Cloud, speaking on elections.
Hey, good morning, Kari.
Good morning. I was just telling Commissioner Phoebe that I made it through my last graduation.
Congratulations.
5
Number
kids.
5. for
Next
Kari.
year it's another wedding, so.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I am here to just briefly talk about 10 absolute truths about, this says the 2020 election, but I say election fraud in general. Number 1, election fraud is real. It's not new, but it has gotten more sinister and sophisticated, especially with our electronic voting systems. The election stakes are higher than ever before. Foreign actors are interfering in our elections, and that is a national security risk, and not just Russian collusion, but money coming in from foreign funding into our elections. Our electronic voting machines are vulnerable, but most are afraid to admit it. What happened in 6 states was not normal or acceptable. Number 6, the science of statistics reveals unusual patterns that should be investigated. Number 7, mail-in ballots have long been recognized as a fraud risk, and with good reason. Number 8, preventing election fraud is a civil rights issue. Number 9, the mainstream media and social media manipulated election results by censoring political disclosure. Number 10, is it acceptable? It is acceptable to question election results. In fact, it's necessary to maintain free and fair elections. The bottom line is nations that allow mass corruption in elections are at risk of permanently losing all liberties. So you can look at this a little further. Also, I just don't know if you're aware, Minnesota Supreme Court finds Secretary of State's rulemaking on absentee ballots invalid, so as a win for election integrity. And finally, I have another article about the impact of massive solar farms, residents and wildlife affected, and aquifers threatened. You may want to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kari. Moving on now to our consent agenda, item number 3. And I have learned we will be pulling an item. Commissioner Danielowski.
Madam Chair, thank you. I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item number 8, review and approve an emergency assistance policy to govern the ARPA funds for HHS Emergency Service Assistance Program for separate consideration.
Okay, and are there any other changes? Okay, with that change, we will pull item number 3.8, move that to the end of the consent agenda to consider separately. So then I would be open to a motion to approve the consent agenda with that change.
I made that motion already.
Motion made by, oh, thank you, Commissioner Danielowski.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Felber. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. So then we will move on to taking that item 3.8 up separately. Review and approve an emergency assistance policy to govern the ARPA-funded HHS Emergency Assistance Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to have a language change in who would be eligible for these funds. As it is written right now, it says a resident of the state of Minnesota. I'd like to change that to say a resident of Sherburne County.
Okay. And Keisha, is there a way you can scroll that language onto the screen, just so everyone's aware of this?
Whereabouts can I find it?
Oh,
It would be in your
it's in, got
It's
it.
an attachment, Keisha. I don't know if, yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Amanda, do you know where it is exactly?
Page 2.
Page 2? Top of page 2.
There it is.
right there, where it says at least one member.
Okay, at
Just
least one
change.
member of the assistance unit must be a Sherburne resident.
Right, change that from Minnesota resident to
Great
Sherburne resident.
catch, yes. Okay, so with that change, we would, what is the wish of the board?
I'd make a motion to approve as amended.
Okay, Commissioner Halls moves to amend,
I'll second.
moves to approve as amended. Commissioner Danielowski seconds. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you. On to that of item number 4, that of announcements. Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just a few brief announcements. Most of them relate to high-level discussion of legislative updates, but we'll discuss that also in workshop in greater detail. Great news for the county, maybe our headline, we did receive $11.7 million from the state legislature for work on the US Highway 169 and County Road 4 interchange. That was the top legislative priority of the county. This really puts us in the driver's seat to secure the final construction funding and proceed with the project. So Andrew's looking over that information as well, and a lot of kudos to all of the members of the board who helped get the message there. We hosted a lot of visits, we've had discussions, and really came home with that this year. So thank you for that. Second, and maybe Andrew should leave more often on trips because all of this happened with him gone, but Gina had 2 great occurrences between the board meetings. First of all, our Great Northern Trail, which we are the lead partnering agency with several different cities and counties, received regional designation. That's a huge, huge step forward. It means that the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission recognizes the trail as integral to the regional and statewide trail interconnected system. It also will make us eligible for additional state and even potentially federal funds for pursuing completion of the Great Northern Trail. Special thanks to Chair Phobie and Commissioner Danielowski, who went out and met on the tour and met the members of the commission and really did a great conversation with them. Third is Gina also was instrumental in us receiving an achievement award from the National Association of Counties for our work on the Big Elk Lake Parkland project, really highlighting the relationship that we've built with our tribal nations in pursuing that park. And hopefully the board members will be able to attend the luncheon and the awards ceremony down in Texas here this summer and receive the award on behalf of the county. Switching gears a little bit back to a couple of legislative things just to highlight. Number 2 on our priority list for legislative action was to receive state funding for those individuals deemed mentally ill and dangerous who are in transition from a medical hold unit to state housing. We did receive support from the state. They will be funding that for the next 2 years. That's a huge financial impact for counties like Sherburne County. But our effort, of course, will be to secure long-term commitment of the state to fund those institutions. And again, we're talking about the time when it's between a state institution and another state institution. It used to be that those particular folks dropped to the county responsibility financially, and the state is now picking that up, at least for the next couple of years. Then just a couple of notes.
You had Common and Bay, subgranted borrow 8,600. I don't know where you found that one. Yeah.
I got a question for you here. So they're talking about use only if,
Dave,
only, let's see.
You can actually just
Use
hit mute on
this
it.
one only if OJT requirements.
There you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
yeah.
So let's see, select
Oh, you can just
granular
have 'em
embankment
leave.
right here,
Just hit leave.
Can you?
and then common embankment.
Oh,
So
where
Just
does
hit
that
the
one come
red button
from?
for the shut.
I highlighted these two right here.
No, if you click
Is
on
that
Dave
from the
and then,
plan? This is from the plan.
Ending the teams.
then you can just restart it though. Sorry about that.
Apologize.
At least we know Dave's working and not
Yeah.
listening to anything
It
really
is
fun.
working hard.
Title
So
sheet.
Oh,
What's
he's
the name
back.
on that sheet? Did you grab it from?
I think if you
310.
click,
He hasn't left, so every time I join, he's still.
gotcha, okay.
Andrew went.
Yeah, he went running, so interesting.
So,
Limitations of technology. Oh, so a couple of just notes for the calendar and for the public. Next Tuesday is the County Board of Appeal and Equalization. We'll be discussing the role of the commissioners in a workshop, but wanted to make sure that we noted it as being next week. And then we did omit on the agenda, I just want to make it known that we do have a future workshop scheduled on the 20th to continue discussion on North Star. There was some legislative activity relating to North Star, and I will get that information prepared for the board. And Andrew also made sure we had all the information. It was my error that it wasn't listed on your agenda, and apologize for that, but it is a future workshop. And then finally, just a note, on June 20th, we do have a rather long board meeting scheduled, so I would ask commissioners to clear your calendar through lunch, and we'll probably just order a soup and sandwiches or something for lunch, given that it's looking to be about a 3+ hour meeting at this point. With that, I'll stand for any questions the commissioners may have.
any questions or any other announcements?
Madam Chair,
Certainly.
I just want to thank Administrator Messelt for getting the North Star information back out, and Andrew for getting that out. It's a lot of information there, and so it's by holding it, on the 20th or whenever we hold it, that gives us plenty of time to review that information and have a good discussion at the time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, moving on to our regular agenda. We're a little bit ahead of schedule here, people. That's fabulous. We will now review an update regarding Northland Reliability Project and welcome Brian Hunker from Great River Energy to join us. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
And you did get a handout also before the meeting about this.
Correct, yes. And if anybody else would like a handout, please let me know. I've got one left. I can leave. But I'm Brian Hunker. I work for Great River Energy as a transmission permitting project manager. I had the opportunity to present to the board back in February, I believe, on our Northland Reliability Project. And this is a new transmission line build from near Grand Rapids, Minnesota, down to near Becker, Minnesota. So I'll provide a project overview, discuss where we're at on routing the transmission line, where we're at on permitting, and then be able to address any questions that folks may have. So this is a snapshot of the project. It extends from the Iron Range substation near Grand Rapids down to a new substation. We're actually going to call it the Cuyuna Series Compensation Station outside of the Riverton, Ironton area, down to the existing Benton County substation, and then down to the Big Oaks and Sherco substations near Becker. So as our generation resources are shifting, the electrical grid does need to be needs to be rebuilt into a reliable system that'll help bring resiliency and increase flexibility to bring on different generators onto our grid. And it'll help maintain reliability and deliver safe and clean energy to all of our customers. I forgot to mention too, this is a joint project between Minnesota Power and Great River Energy. So it's basically split 50-50 on development costs. So the project was first developed by MISO, which stands for Mid-Continent System Operators, and they're the grid operator for the central part of the U.S. You can see that they extend from North Dakota to Michigan down into Illinois, Indiana areas, and they actually have developed a whole series of long-range transmission projects. They're shown here in orange. Ours is one part highlighted in blue. Bear in mind, each one of these are not islands either. They're actually all interconnected through the existing transmission grid. So our project is really divided into two parts. Segment 1, it's shown in orange, that extends from Iron Range down to Benton County, and segment 2 extends from Benton County down to Big Oaks and Sherco. So segment 1 is a new transmission line build. It's a double circuit 345 line, roughly 140 miles long. And we do have the opportunity to site this transmission line adjacent or next to existing transmission facilities. The Iron Range substation and the Benton County substations will both be expanded as a part of this project. And then we will build a new series compensation station in the Riverton area. Segment 2, which is mostly here in Sherburne County, is a rebuild of 2 existing transmission lines. So both of them are roughly 20 miles long. One of them is a 230 kV line that will be rebuilt to a 345 transmission line, and the second one is a 345 kV transmission line that will be rebuilt to double circuit capable. This highlights the substation expansions and the new substations that we are proposing. So right now we have identified our preferred route that we will put into an application to the Public Utilities Commission. We are currently drafting that application, and we are looking to submit that later this summer, early fall here of 2023. And how we got there was by defining a study area, narrowed that into a route corridor, then we defined preliminary routes, and then identified our proposed route. And I've got slides that will highlight each one of those steps. So this is our study area. It encompasses our project endpoints, and it was a fairly wide area and allowed us the opportunity to look at various constraints to transmission development along with opportunities for transmission development. We narrowed that into our route corridor that was really centered on existing transmission facilities. We do have a couple areas that are widened, such as around Upper Long Lake, South Upper Long Lake, just west of Mille Lacs, east of Brainerd. And that gave us the opportunity to review facilities that go east around the lake or west around the lake or through the center of it. That route corridor was developed into a preliminary route, and this is what we are proposing in our route permit application to the Public Utilities Commission. Keep in mind that the state does allow for a route corridor up to basically 1.25 miles wide, but the actual right-of-way that we're going to need for a project like this would be up to 150 feet. So the actual right-of-way is quite a bit narrower than that preliminary route. And that just allows us to work with various state agencies, landowners, on the exact location of the right-of-way. So this was presented to the public earlier this year, and then we developed our this is a snapshot of the route corridor. It actually should say preliminary route within Sherburne County, and it just shows a rebuild of the existing transmission facilities. And here in Sherburne County, we plan to stay on the existing 150-foot wide easement that we currently have. So for segment 1, there is existing transmission facilities that we plan to co-locate next to. So there's either a 115 kV transmission line that's shown on the far left, or a 230 kV transmission line that's shown in the center there. what allows us to, when we're next to existing facilities, it allows us to overlap rights of way. So instead of having a total of 300-foot wide right of way, so 150 foot for the existing, 150 foot for the proposed, we can narrow that down by, say, anywhere from 20 to 40 foot, depending on landscape topography and other features that we need to span. So it allows us to narrow down that right of way. As you can see, the transmission structures are that are currently on the landscape are wooden H-frames. We are proposing a steel monopole structure. It's got arms on either side to carry 2 circuits, hence the double circuit. And these are going to be on a concrete pier foundation. This shows what it would look like when it's adjacent to transmission facilities, like one existing transmission facility. Same type of structure, same opportunities to overlap rights of way. Here in Sherburne County, you can see we had 2 transmission lines that we are replacing. The one on the left, highlighted in A, is a wood H-frame structure that will be removed, and that steel monopole will be replaced. So that would be the segment that goes from Benton County down to Sherco. What we are showing in B, so on the right-hand side there, is an existing steel 345, existing steel structure, 345 kV. And that one will be rebuilt again to a steel monopole with a double circuit, and that one goes from Benton County down to the Big Oaks substation. And the Big Oaks substation is actually going to be built as a part of the Alexandria to Big Oaks project. So it's going to be built as a part of a different project. Here's our rough schedule. In 2023 here, we plan to continue with our permitting process. Again, we do plan to submit that route permit application later this summer, early fall, and at that point, the Public Utilities Commission and the Department of Commerce will host some public scoping meetings. They'll draft an environmental review document, and they'll have public hearings on the project as well. 2024 through 2026 will be final design, engineering, land rights, and environmental permitting and surveys. And then we plan to have 4 years of construction from 2027 to 2030. We haven't figured out exactly our construction staging yet. That's something that we're currently working on. So we're not going to be on somebody's property the entire 4 years. We're going to be on their properties for short time periods as we go in, remove a structure, put in the concrete pier, come back and put the actual structure up and string the wire. This highlights our public engagement. We do have a website out there with an interactive map. It's a Google Earth type interface. Folks can leave comments directly on that map that come to me or my cohort at Minnesota Power. We also have a hotline and an email address that folks may either ask us, they may call the line, ask us questions, or send us an email. We did have public open houses in January. We hosted them again in May. And then we're willing to meet with anybody out on site should folks want that, or we can also do virtual meetings as well, so like a WebEx. So that concludes my presentation, and here is our contact information, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions from the board or comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
Quick question. So what additional generating facilities does the overall project allow interconnection with?
Yeah, the generation, this isn't exactly tied to any specific generator. So as folks come online, we do have that capability to carry generation. They will not be able to tie directly into the line, right? Typically, they'll have to develop their facility, install a line that would either go to, say, the Benton County substation, and then it would come online through the Benton County sub or through the Sherco sub or something like that. So kind of think of this line as like bulk energy transfer from central Minnesota to northern Minnesota.
Okay. Other questions?
I did have one question. How old is the existing lines that you're looking to replace? I'm assuming they're aging out of their,
Yeah, the H-frame, so the wooden H-frame, I believe that was built in the early 60s. And the monopole steel line was probably built in the 80s, would be my guess.
so this is just an updating of the existing system, updating the amount of what it can take and process out for the needs of a growing area.
Correct, yes, yep, exactly. So the lines are going to be able to carry more generation, and it's going to be able to, like have the bulk energy transfer from northern Minnesota to central Minnesota. And then it will allow the flexibility to bring on different generators and create a more resilient and reliable grid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And possibly service for another 70, 80 years.
But yeah, yes,
Current
this
ones.
is, yes,
Yeah,
the
that would-
steel structures are very robust.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, seeing no more questions, thank you for this
Okay, thank you.
update, and thanks for your contact information. We will connect with you over time.
Okay,
as this
great.
progresses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that takes us to another presentation by the Initiative Foundation, which is a huge supporter of us in many ways. So we welcome Carl Newbanks, staff member, and then we also have a couple board members in the room. David Monroy is in the back, and also our own Dan Weber is a board member. So just a shout out to them. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Yes, it's a pleasure to have a couple trustees in the room today. And it's a pleasure to be here today to just give a quick update on the Foundation's activities and impact in Sherburne County. First and foremost, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for your support and for the support of the businesses and individuals and cities in Sherburne County that contribute to our economic and community development work. In your packet, you start with the Initiative Foundation. We call it the project sheet. It's a list of grants and projects we funded in 2020, 2021, and 2022. It's fairly long in Sherburne County. There's lots of activity. We're happy to also partner with one of our charitable funds, the Three Rivers Community Foundation, that also does a lot of charitable grant making here in Sherburne County. Following that project sheet is the next PDF, which is called the Impact Update. And this is the one I'd like to focus on today. As you can see, we've collected, and this is since 1986, so since our inception, our investment and activities here in Sherburne County, we've collected $1.4 million in donations to the Initiative Foundation from within Sherburne County and have been able to return $9 million into Sherburne County in the form of grants, loans, and scholarships, which just a little further down on that page calculates to a return on investment of $6.25 back into Sherburne County for every dollar that we've collected from within Sherburne County. We're really happy to report that sort of a return, although it's not a pure reflection of the kind of impact and work that we generate in the county. It's a nice, simple way to just look back and essentially we just like to look at that number and say it's a great reflection of how we maximize our impact and put the resources that are entrusted to us to good work and bring an excellent return into the county. We remain committed to translating everyone's support into meaningful and significant impacts within Sherburne County, and that's that next little box below that says economic impact. Oh, just there you go, right there. And here you can see the total number of grants that have been made in Sherburne County, total scholarships, total number of loans, the amount of outside capital that's been leveraged, and the amount of charitable funds that we work with here in Sherburne County. And again, those numbers are since inception, and I'll get to some more frequent or more recent updates here in just a minute. And just below that, then on the next page, you can see just some quick snapshots of some of the work, some of the recent grants, some of the recent business financing projects, charitable funds that we host, and I just mentioned the Three Rivers Community Foundation. Since their inception in 1998, They've provided 290 grants in Sherburne County to the tune of about $807,000 in support. Just a little bit farther down, we always like to highlight our nonprofit assistance program. We continue to emphasize this program. We want to build the capacity of the nonprofits serving the region, providing training for leaders, executives, capacity building, fundraising training for nonprofits. I think you had 4 nonprofits in Sherburne County participate in our nonprofit capacity building programs in 2022. And just below that, just a few quick highlights. Again, an electric vehicle charging station that we partner with some other folks to put in, a project to help provide beds for senior citizens in need, and another project working with Community Aid of Elk River to help those facing food insecurity get access to familiar products. So that's just a quick snapshot of since 1986 until today, and I'll just give some recent numbers, and I'd be happy to take any questions. We continue to provide mostly gap financing as a resource to small businesses across the region. We want to partner with banks to help projects happen. I always like to say, as an example, you know, we've seen where we have businesses out in rural Minnesota. The business wants to expand. We want to see that business stay in that rural community as an economic resource, but maybe the bank isn't comfortable with the whole project. So then they can circle around to the Initiative Foundation and say, would you cover the gap? Maybe take a second position in the loan. We really want to see this project happen. And those are the kind of projects we're happy to be involved in. Again, we want to support those small businesses and those rural communities. And we would do the same thing in some of our larger communities as well. We're very active, St. Cloud, Elk River, et cetera. In 2022, we funded 3 projects, or I should say participated in 3 projects in Sherburne County, providing $91,000 in gap financing, leveraging $725,000 in external financing for those projects, and securing or creating 16 jobs. Currently in 2023, we're involved in 3 projects in Sherburne County. I don't think any of those have funded yet. They're all still in the works, but it looks like we're going to have 3 projects here real soon. We continue to, I mentioned earlier, support our nonprofits. You had 4 folks participate in nonprofit programming, and I would like to highlight one area that we are really proud of. We feel like one of the values we bring to the region is we're able to go outside and find external funding, bring it into the region and deploy it and put it to work. One example of this is a project that we were involved in with a large external foundation who actually approached us and asked us if we wanted $2 million for emergency business relief loans. And we replied back and said, we don't feel like anyone needs another loan for emergency relief. We would really like to see more emergency business relief grants in 2022, and we feel like nonprofits have been left out of emergency relief, so we'd like to do some real transformative grant awards to nonprofits in the region. Typically, when a funder's asking you if you want money, you don't reply back and say no, but we did reply back and say, no, we feel like this is a better need. And so that foundation then circled back to us and said, we agree, we'd like to award these funds to you and have you deploy them as emergency business relief grants and transformative grants to nonprofits. So one of those grants actually happened here in Sherburne County. That was a $55,000 award to help the Big Lake Community Food Shelf improve their facilities and their service delivery. We actually took each nonprofit that received a transformative grant, place them with a consultant, help them evaluate their business. What is their highest need? What would really move the needle for that organization? How can we make that award? And then walk with them to help them implement that award. Really kind of, we say, move the needle, transform the organization if we can. It was a great project. There were many of these kinds of grants awarded, as well as many grants as emergency relief to businesses as a result of that project. But again, I highlight it here. It's one of the ways we really feel like we bring value is to find outside resources and bring them into the region. I'd also say on the heels of this project, a large foundation that's related to a bank approached us and asked us if we wanted emergency relief lending dollars, and we almost copied the same reply back to them. And interestingly enough, they then circled around and said, yes, take these dollars and put them to work as emergency business relief grants instead of loans. So we're very happy to be able to see the need and address it and bring those external resources in and put them to work within the region. We continue our community development work as well here in Sherburne County. We've been a part of a cost-benefit analysis of investments in renewable energy for the Elk River Food Shelf. We are a primary sponsor of an Elk River electric vehicle fair happening Saturday, August 5th. We've been involved in the facilitation and public engagement for a comprehensive economic development study, and we've been able to make 2 very large grants to support the Sherco transition as well. I shouldn't say support the Sherco transition. We just continue to be involved in that transition and make grants to support any way we can. I also say we continue to emphasize access to affordable childcare as a barrier to keeping and maintaining a workforce. And we continue to work with the Minnesota Department of Education and the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. We're supporting cities. The basic work we've been doing is to gather stakeholders, explore what is the need, what is this community solution, and how can we help put feet to that solution. We want communities to come up with their own solutions, and we don't drive everything from Little Falls and come up with all the solutions. We're happy to support local communities. We've seen folks come up with varied ideas and solutions, from pooling resources to provide accounting for several childcare providers together. We've seen other communities say we need large centers. We'd prefer to take that approach. So we're happy to partner with communities and continue to move that initiative forward. And I know Elk River and I think Sherburne County has also participated in the studies so far. And Don Hickman, our Vice President of Community and Economic Development, says anyone who's interested, feel free to reach out to him and he'd be happy to have the discussion and continue to work with them. I would wrap things up by just saying in 2022, total grant making for the foundation in Sherburne County approached $1 million. And we had a lot of, again, emergency business relief grants still happening in 2022, so that number's a little inflated, but still happy to bring those dollars to work in the county. So far in 2023, we have 7 grants awarded for $51,000. We continue to support the region. We have the Initiators Fellowship Program where we support social entrepreneurs. We currently have 9 applicants from Sherburne County to be Initiator Fellows. That's exciting to see. And we continue to support entrepreneurs through our Enterprise Academy program. We have a great story about an entrepreneur from Sherburne County that went through Enterprise Academy training, started a business, was very successful, accessed our character-based lending, was able to get a loan and grow their business, now has moved on to more traditional lending, has established a great relationship with a financial institution, has purchased a second business, and is now one of our trainers and coaches for Enterprise Academy participants. So we are happy to see that program growing and generating a real impact with emerging entrepreneurs. And in conclusion, I'd just like to once again express our appreciation for your support and for the support of the cities and counties. We appreciate the partnership, we appreciate all the collaborative work, and we're looking forward to moving forward together to address the region's needs and opportunities. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Carl. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
I just want to thank you for your update, and specifically, I appreciate the comments on the issues with childcare. As a business owner, I can speak first-handedly that childcare issues with my employees are a top issue. Being able to get to work, to be able to support their families, so it's a big issue, and I appreciate you highlighting that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Danielowski.
And I'd just like to say it has been a very good partnership. You're always willing to look at things as to how we can improve, how we can do different things to make life better for the residents of Sherburne County and the businesses in Sherburne County. So it is a very good partnership, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate your support.
Others? Yes, Initiative Foundation, I think my kids will laugh at this, but they should be in your Rolodex, board members.
Absolutely.
What's
Yes, we
a
should.
Rolodex? Okay, it ages me a bit. But they are such a great support of our business community, our nonprofits, and we are so lucky to have local people on the board because they help bring Sherburne, strengthen that partnership. So I know Dan, David are always looking out for how we can utilize that for those people that just need that gap, like you said a number of times, that gap funding, that gap piece to really help elevate that business. We know that keeping businesses here in Sherburne County are key right now. We don't want to lose them, and nonprofits. So the partnership's strong, and we really appreciate that. So thank you for your presentation,
Thank you.
partnership. I should have asked Dan and David if they want to add anything, but Dan does not, we know how much Dan, David also.
Madam Chair, who is this and what do you do with Dan?
We'll let him in.
Wow. I just want to add, a lot of the grants we get from the Initiative Foundation get us data that lead to additional grants from the state. The example I use at the EDA is we received a $2,500 grant from the Initiative Foundation for a grant writer, which led to a $1 million grant for some rail infrastructure in Becker. So he was very humble, but a lot of what they do lead to bigger prizes as well.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I've lived here 25 years, and they were one of my first connections up in Princeton with the early childhood program, so go way back. And I've seen that over and over and over, so great. Thanks, Dan, for that example. David? Nope. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, consider a rezoning request from general rural to industrial. Lynn Watashik, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. These are the items from the May Planning Commission. This is the Elk River landfill. They're requesting to rezone from general rural to industrial. I believe this is for a gas plant is what they're looking at putting in. Planning Commission recommended approval with the findings of A to H, which are in your packet.
Okay, so I'd be open to a motion. What is the board's wish on this?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request from general rural to industrial.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Danielowski,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments?
I do have one, and I don't know if Gary wanted to add anything, but I do see where this is going to be an opportunity for them to add on to their gas plant to be able to continue to make methane into the gas pipeline. And this, I know that in 2030, it looks like that portion of the landfill is going to be capped, and they feel they're going to have good methane to recapture for the next 40 years beyond that. So I view this as a good use of the rezoning purpose, and so, yeah. I don't know if you wanted to add anything. I know
No, the
there's-
planning commission felt the same way. I think that was their structure. They felt it was a long-term thing for the retention of methane gas, so, no, it's a good deal.
Okay, any other comments?
I did appreciate, too, that they're looking at ways to reduce any odor that might come of that process, so I appreciated that for, I'm sure, the residents that are around that facility.
And I just also want to mention that there's a lot of facilities like this that just burn off the methane, and so to recapture it, purify it, and be able to put it back in the pipeline, I think is an excellent use.
Okay, any others? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you, Lynn. The next item, consider approval of an interim use permit for a 1 megawatt solar garden.
And this is called MNCSG 2019-67 LLC. It's the Monk property, and this is up in Clear Lake Township, and it'll include 18.4 acres in the agricultural district and in the orderly annexation zone 3 with Clear Lake City. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 20 conditions and the findings of fact.
Okay, so what is the wish of the board for this one?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gray. Is there a second?
Clarification, that's a motion to approve with the conditions?
Approve yes, with the 20 conditions,
And the findings of fact.
the findings of fact. So approve an interim use permit for Minnesota CSG 2019-67 LLC for a 1 megawatts solar garden with the following 20 conditions and findings of fact. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Hall seconds. Comments or questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
Commissioner
know in,
Danilowski.
thank you. I know in reading the packet information, this was discussed quite at length. And Gary, would you like to add anything in regards to, I know that there was a comment that was sent in from Clearwater, the city of Clearwater as well, and with some of their concerns, but after the conversation, it's kind of like they're so outside of that area to really put any input into it, so.
Yeah, the city of Clearwater has a concern because of their extension of their 2-mile or their annexation attempt coming across the river. There's a huge gray area in regards to where that's established in relationship to the holding ponds within Clear Lake Township. I don't see a problem with this in this situation. I applaud the city of Clearwater for reaching out, but the city of Clear Lake has no problem with this, and it sits right in the orderly annexation agreement that the city of Clear Lake has with Clear Lake Township. So I think this is well within what we can do.
Any other questions? I do appreciate the planning commission's wrestling with this. You know, it's clear by the narrative that they do. I appreciate the work they put, and even though the final comes to this board, they do drill down in these. We do also, but we have a lot of things that we need to drill down in. So appreciate the process that and the time that the planning commission spends with these.
Yeah, there was a real robust discussion in regards to this, so.
You can see that, so. Okay, we do have a motion and a second to approve this, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Our next item, getting to it here. Agenda item 5.5, consider approving amendments to an existing interim use permit for a 1-megawatt solar farm to allow for agrivoltaics in condition number 12. Lynn.
So this company is called USS Big Lake 1 LLC. The property owner is USS Land Co. LLC. This is unusual because this solar company actually owns the property and purchased it from the landowner a number of years ago. This is a new word for us. We had to learn what agrivoltaics is. They're wanting to plant, have the ability to plant row crops done by individuals, not necessarily a large farmer. They have the spacing on their solar panels a little further apart, and they want that option to be available to them. Planning Commission had a lot of discussion on this. This is in Big Lake Township on approximately 20 acres. They recommended approval with the 24 conditions and the findings of fact, and then we amended part of 12 and added conditions 13, 14, and 24 to address some of the concerns and issues that came up.
Okay, I also see new conditions under 11. So 11, 12, and 13, and then beyond.
I believe it's not, I didn't see anything under 11. I believe 11 says property owner shall ensure MPCA day and nighttime noise standards are not exceeded at any time.
Our number 11 says the site will be vegetated within 30 days of construction with a low growth, and then there's a big underlined part at the end of that. Is that what you're seeing too also, board members?
Yep. Well, that's what I see up on the screen. What I have in front of me looks like it's a little different.
So.
Yep. In addition, Big Lake Township did not want any fowl as associated as livestock. They did want, they were okay with sheep and goats, but they did not want fowl on the property, so we added that condition as well.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so what is the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented.
So that would be to approve amending the conditions for the existing interim use permit.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
There's a first and a second. Questions or comments on this?
I just think it's an interesting idea.
And
It's worth taking a shot at and see how this works out. just multi-use for the property and to see if we could actually get some more, food production in the area would be kind of it's interesting. It's an interesting experiment.
Okay, thanks.
And Madam Chair,
Commissioner Danielowski.
thank you. I concur, and the Planning Commission had a very good conversation on this one as well, and they felt the same way. And the company is looking for ways to utilize the land. They do want to focus on organic farming and what can be done around these solar facilities to generate a food source. So I'm just as interested to watch this and see where it can go to.
Commissioner Halls?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, this is an existing facility that they're trying to add some agricultural use to. So I think it would be, I think it's interesting. I think it would be interesting at some point down the road to get an update and see what the results were. Yeah. See how effective it is.
Thanks, Commissioner Halls. That had just crossed my mind. I think, I don't know if you've connected with our Soil and Water Office and the Agriculture or our USDA office. I think they'd be very intrigued by this. And Commissioner Grace is our liaison to Soil and Water, so I might pass the baton to you to
I've been in agriculture 40 years and never heard of agrivoltaics, so
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I have read about this some time ago, and this is happening at other places, so I'm really intrigued by it and think that it potentially can add great value to these projects. So yes, I agree. I'd love to have a circle back at some point to give us a little presentation on how it's working, what you've learned, what works, what doesn't. I think that'd be great. Commissioner Halls.
The ranch I worked on as a kid had agrivoltaics, but that was just the electric fence.
The electric fence. Well, and I think we have to give kudos to the company because they could have went ahead and done this without probably any of us knowing any better, and for them to come forward and do the process and go through the due diligence, I have to give them a kudos and a thank you for doing that.
And Madam Chair, I think too that some of the conversation when they were out in front of the Big Lake Township Board as well, even though it says sheep and possibly goats, I don't foresee seeing goats out there because goats are climbers and we all know what they like to do, and they would not mix with solar panels.
We keep those in our parks.
Yeah.
in Sherburne.
To eat other vegetation.
We keep goats in Graham's Park. So, okay, any other questions or comments? Look forward to seeing how this all goes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Item number 5.6, consider and approve Vanco residential well sampling with Ms. June Volkers, and Mr. Dave Lucas also is here with us.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm June Volkers. I'm the hydrogeologist, and I work under Dave. So we're going to request residential well sampling near Vanco 1, the closed landfill that's down County Road 14 near Big Lake. So we go to the next slide here. Or next slide. Where's
the clicker is not cooperating.
Oh, okay, I think there is. So I just have some historical photos of Vanco 1 throughout the years. It's not doing its automatic animation, but you can kind of see it started off as a gravel pit back in 1957, and then it was turned into a landfill from 1994 to 2006 when the final cap was installed. This is an unlined landfill. Residents started moving in after, the 90s or so. And it was closed in 2004, as I mentioned, and then in 2006, the final cap was installed. And the aerial photographs, those are just from the Google Earth images. So you can kind of see the progression of it being forest to cropland and then becoming a residential neighborhood. So we've been sampling these residential wells since 2012. We do it once a year. The residents are notified by mail, and then the water sample is pulled from the tap outside of the residential home to avoid any contamination from like a water treatment system. There are a number of chemical compounds that this sample is tested for. Volatile organic compounds. There's a list of over 70 compounds that that it's run on, and also dissolved metals, inorganic compounds, and then just the general chemistry of the water sample. And so far, none of these detections or none of these constituents have been shown in any of these residential well samples. And this is a map of Vanco 1 landfill. There are a number of exceedances of intervention limits throughout the years. Intervention limit is a quarter of the health risk limit. So there have not been any health risk limits detected on any of these wells ever since we've been sampling the groundwater. You can kind of see that around the landfill, some of these, like the 5A well, that one has a number of intervention limits in the past. Vinyl chloride is a volatile organic compound, and also nitrate is kind of common, which is indicative of a lot of the agriculture around the area.
Ms. Volkers?
Yes.
I just had one quick question.
Yep.
So when you're talking about what is in the well tests, you're saying these show up, but they don't exceed what the acceptable standards are, is what you're saying?
For a health risk limit.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, intervention limit is a quarter of the health risk limit.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So Houston Engineering is a company that we work with, and they do a number of our field work for the sampling, and this is one of the projects that they will be contracting with us on. We're proposing to sample in this fall, and then they send the test results to an independent laboratory in Iowa. And then after the samples are submitted and analyzed, and then we get the data back, and then we share all the information with the residents as well. And Houston Engineering, they do the analytical report on these samples. So you can see down there in the chart what we are requesting, and that is for 11 residential wells. And last year we added 5 to this list, so we have a good representative sample of that area for groundwater wells. So I'd like to take any more questions, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, June. Any questions? So this is done annually. If you can back up the slides to where the households are, just curious how you pick the households. Like, why doesn't this household get tested?
One in the middle there?
Yeah, there's a few in there, that we don't test. How did you pick the 11 that are currently being tested?
Dave, can you answer that question? Like, I know there was the 5 that were kind of distributed, and then they increased the
So,
households.
Madam Chair, groundwater flow is straight south to the well. So, and then there is slightly, it runs this way and south. So that's why we picked this well, this well, this well. And we have not picked this well because these 2 wells right here are in the direct path. If these wells pick up anything, then we'll start sampling this well. Hopefully we don't detect anything right here. and these exceedances right here. So that is a standard. I just want to clarify one thing. That's a standard that landfills are required to meet. Exceedances of intervention limits, they cannot exceed an intervention limit beyond their compliance boundary. This closed landfill has to maintain a 50-foot compliance boundary. That's why now today, facilities are required to maintain a 200-foot compliance boundary. And that allows for mitigation in the event that you have an exceedance beyond your compliance boundary. These wells are very close right here, so that's why we watch these very closely. And then when you have an exceedance, facilities are required to do a confirmation testing, and that's typically done the next quarterly sampling. And right now, what we're seeing is they'll have an exceedance, then they won't. Then they'll have an exceedance, then they won't. And what we feel is there's a possible plume within this gap right here. That's why we're watching these wells really closely. And we're working with agency to see if there could be an additional monitoring well placed at this landfill. Does that answer your question, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you. Other questions?
Dave, how deep are they? Are they all on the same plane depth-wise, the ones around the landfill and the ones in the residential?
There are a combination of shallow wells and one deep well, which is in the same aquifer as the residential wells are.
Okay. So what foot depth are we talking
About 90 feet,
90 feet.
roughly, in the Mount Simon Hinckley aquifer.
Yep.
Yes.
Any others?
I did have one question when you showed us what the history of that site is. Is it pretty common that if a site is going to be mined for its gravel, that it will eventually turn into a landfill when they've mined everything out of it?
In this county, yes.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Like how many years after? No, just kidding. Okay, any other questions? So this is $8,600 taken out of the landfill surcharge. This is a non-levy expense. So we would be open to a motion to approve the sampling of residential wells downgrading from the Vonco Big Lake landfill.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Danielowski moves.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Hulse. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, one question. When will the results be in on what has been tested for this cycle?
For the residential well sampling?
For everything, when will we get the results of what we're
Oh,
paying?
right now, we'll sign the agreement, we'll coordinate with Houston Engineering, and we'll probably look at July or August. And then typically it's about a 2-week turnaround time for the lab.
Okay,
So once we get the results back, we will bring that forward to the board.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Dave and June. So with that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you. Item number 7, the ARPA update and recommended approvals. Mr. Dan Weber.
Good morning again, Commissioners. This week we have 2 requests under the $50,000 threshold, and then we do have a couple of parks expenses over the 50. So I'll start with the 2 under. The first request is for one-time fiber installation at the fairground property. The current broadband does not have the capacity to allow vendors, 4-H, or the ticket booths to access the current Wi-Fi. The county would be covering the cost of the install, and the infrastructure would stay with the property if it were ever to be developed. Per our lease with the Ag Society, all ongoing service costs would be paid for by the Fair Board. So this would greatly impact their efficiency at the fair and allow them to take credit cards, which they haven't been able to do in the past.
Okay, so what is the wish of the board?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve that request.
Okay, motion made to approve the $15,200 broadband infrastructure request to the fairground property using ARPA dollars, a one-time capital expense. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, just one. In reading the information, it also sounds like the office of the Fair Board becomes greatly diminished during that period of time when the people try to get on what they do bring for their Wi-Fi
Correct.
needs.
The vendors would slow it down if they were allowed access with this solution. They would both be able to access it at a much higher speed.
And
Thank
just
you.
a timeline question, is this going to be up for this summer?
It would be up for this summer if we can move it today.
I can't believe they've functioned hardly without this. When I read through this, I'm like, wow, this just,
It's kind of antiquated right now, absolutely.
no toilets, you know? It's like, so.
Well, porta potties.
Yeah, porta potties, that'll be the next. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
The second request is to replace obsolete armor radio switch equipment cast. MnDOT is converting from T1 to Ethernet, and the project would cover the cost of the switch conversion.
Okay, so what is the wish of the board?
I would move that we approve that.
Motion made by
Absolutely necessary.
Commissioner Felber for the $18,130 armor radio switch cost, also a one-time capital expense.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
And I'll turn it over to Gina for the parks projects.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Gina Hugo. And congratulations on the most recent great news for your efforts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. So we've got two requests for your consideration today. The first is a $100,000 request to help us fund the first phase of building deconstruction at Big Elk Lake. Removal of the buildings is an obvious critical component of rehabilitating the landscape so we can develop a park. This property boasts 32 buildings, 29 of which are slated for removal. All of the buildings to be removed hold the potential of salvage and reuse of materials to mitigate the amount of material going to a landfill. And this deconstruction method also better accommodates the care needed to remove the buildings in a culturally sensitive way. So we anticipate with $100,000 to be able to remove 10 to 15 buildings, and we have developed an order of priority, and the first priority are shown in red, and the second priorities are shown in yellow, which would be added to phase one if the bids come in relatively low and there's enough funding to remove more than 10 buildings. Cultural sensitivity, safety, human safety, environmental threat, and costs were all factors that we considered in developing this phasing recommendation in partnership with our tribal partners. So we have released the RFP as of last week, hopefully to meet the goal of starting deconstruction of phase one late summer, early fall.
Okay, thanks, Gina. What is the wish of the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Gray to approve the $100,000 Big Elk deconstruction and salvage fee proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber.
I do have one small question I forgot to ask those out there. Why couldn't we save the barn?
The large historic dairy barn?
Yeah.
That is being retained for potential restoration and interpretive.
Okay.
Yep.
Outstanding.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
No, Gina had the pleasure of touring me around there, and I saw most of these buildings, and the ones they've slated for definitely need to come down just for a safety factor, if nothing else. They have to go away.
Yeah. People coming out there will get curious, and yes, so that's great. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I appreciate the extra efforts in regards to making sure that we're doing it in a manner to keep as much of the materials out of the landfill and repurpose them in salvage and such. So thank you for those extra efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
Just a quick question. Am I reading this correctly? It looks like most of the phase two buildings are the ones that contain asbestos.
Yes, we wanted to keep those all in the same phase for cost effectiveness. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thanks, Gina. And the Grams Park parking lot.
Yes, so we have an additional request before you for $162,000 to help us realize cost efficiencies by adding bituminous surfacing to an already budgeted gravel parking lot at Grams Park, which is going to be constructed this fall. We currently have $150,000 budgeted for a gravel parking lot installation. The expansion will increase the number of parking spots from 8 to 50. It will include a bus parking lane, which is pretty important. Adding pavement to the same construction bid package will cost the county less in funding and staff time in the long run instead of budgeting for it in future years and putting out another bid. So a paved entrance and parking lot will also reduce future maintenance, so we don't have to be grading the gravel, and it makes paving, I said paving instead of plowing for the second time today. It also makes plowing a lot easier. So the parking has been inadequate for many years, and there's a picture on your slide in the lower left that shows a day when there were 15 cars overflowing out of an 8-stall parking lot. Grams is our highest used park in the county. The parking lot expansion size was developed based on annual park visits since 2019, which is 47,000 people a year. And it also factored in the features being added through a Minnesota DNR grant this summer, the nature playscape and the 50-person shelter. So the other thing I wanted to point out is the layout of the new parking lot on your slide. And it's just kind of east of the existing parking lot and just takes up a lot of mowed turf, so it doesn't displace any native habitat.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I visualize, yes, this parking lot definitely was inadequate for the amount of time that, and the 47,000 visitors, I think is going to increase greatly with the improvements that are happening out at Grams Park. So much needed upgrade by all means. And with that, I'll make that motion to approve.
Commissioner Danielowski moves to approve the 162,000 Grams Park parking lot improvements. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Commissioner Felber seconds. Questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I do appreciate you guys really looking at the efficiency and making sure that you're always looking at saving where we can save and prioritizing where we need to. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you.
I just want to add a quick update that there's about $1 million of ARPA left, so we have allocated quite a bit of our funding. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
I was up there, Jim said that he thought that.
Moving on to agenda item number 6, that of Commissioner correspondence. What has everyone been up to the last, back to May 17th?
Madam Chair?
Okay, Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, so just real quick, May 18th, we had our economic development meeting, and that's, we're making good progress there. A lot of interesting discussion around general possibilities, but also some specifics around helping companies with veterans recruiting, which has been very, very, seems like that's been a very effective pilot so far. May 23rd was a busy day. We had our county, I had a few of our County Connect meetings, both with general staff as well as the sheriffs and corrections team members. And then that evening was the Lake Orono OLID meeting. So that's an interesting part of the Sherburne County or the Mississippi watershed as it's a quasi-government organization. So it's a good meeting. On the 30th, we had our energy transition meeting. Also spent some time with county IT on some process improvement projects that I had some suggestions on. And June 3rd, I had constituents meetings at the Legion in Elk River with Mayor Dietz, and had a lot of discussions at that meeting around solid waste management.
Curious, so is the Orno Lake Association, is it a lake improvement district?
It is.
It is.
It is. It became a lake improvement district, I want to say 4 years ago.
Okay.
So that was quite the process to make that happen, but it's been a very good improvement to the lake.
Okay, great.
And we also have another lake association that is looking at exploring that. The Big Eagle Lake Association
Saw that.
is looking at exploring that as well.
Okay, great. And Briggs Lake Chain is a lake improvement district, so.
I think they were the starters of that whole spot.
Great. Mr. Danielowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On 5/17, I had a sub-coalition meeting. Also that same day, had the Great Northern Trail site visit. I was able to go to the Elk River portion of it, had a very good interaction and conversation with the representatives that were there to look it all over. They had been up by Princeton, where you were there for that one, and they just were very impressed and had a lot of great conversation in regards to our Great Northern Trail. And also they asked the question in regards to, it's great that you do these things, but what happens when it's done? What's your plan? And I had said that we have emphasized in our parks plan that we will identify and keep a maintenance budget going to make sure that we are constantly looking at what needs to be done and we're saving towards it. And they were very happy to hear that. So, also on 5/18, attended the same EDA meeting that Andrew was speaking of, and looking forward to, we were going to be having a presentation about childcare, but the member couldn't make it that day, so we're looking forward to hopefully having that conversation at our upcoming meeting, because as Andrew stated, it is a high need to be addressed in our county for people to continue to work and meeting their childcare needs. Also attended the Tri-County Solid Waste meeting, and then that evening, I attended the RSVP 50-year celebration, and that is our retired senior program in the county that does so much to volunteer their time and give back, and that was really a neat event, and they've been in existence for 50 years. So, also on 5/22, met with the Benton County group of commissioners and staff. They toured our facility. They are looking at doing a new build to their government center needs. So they toured ours, really did like and appreciate what they seen, and then they were leaving us to go tour Wright counties after that. So I also had a County Connect meeting with probably about 70 or so participants in regards to just communicating and updating staff with what the county is doing and addressing any questions that they might have to keep them informed. So I thought that really was great. I think it's a great idea to continue. Also attended the Sherco Solar 1 and 2 groundbreaking ceremony up by Clear Lake, and had an options board meeting that evening. 5/23, I attended the Serve Big, which is a group of nonprofits and residents in the Big Lake community that meet at the school with the school to talk about different ways that we can serve the needs of the Big Lake area. And a lot of discussion at that time centering around a resource center. And so then we did create a subcommittee to break apart and talk and explore as to what that could look like for the Big Lake Schools area. And let's see, had a Zoom meeting with Jessica Bartle in First Children's Finance, and that was revolving around what they can do to assist childcare needs in the county. That was very informative. Stay tuned for more information to come on that. Also then had a second all-staff meeting that evening with the sheriff's office personnel and also the evening maintenance staff. Then on 5/24, had a legislative recap through AMC for the end of session and everything that happened, and that's going to take some time to digest. Everybody is looking through everything, getting a better understanding of what all of the different things that passed means, and we'll continue to be updated on that. 5/24 had a SUP webinar on Let's Talk, and that was very interesting just to highlight when you're talking about substance abuse and how important it is to continue to keep talking and carrying on a conversation, and that how helpful that is to help prevent also any possible youth going down that path. Attended in the council meeting on the 24th. In recognition, they had named their Citizen of the Year. That went to one of our board members that serves on the Big Lake Spud Fest board, Nick Payne, very deserving honor. Then also ran out to the township meeting as well. 5/25, attended the Transportation Alliance legislative update. There was a lot of information that was shared as to the different things that are going to be coming down that's going to help support improving our roads and our bridges. And most people that are driving our roads these days, I think, are more than happy and ready to see these things improve. Also then on the 26th, attended that that subcommittee for Family Resource Center Planning Committee. 6/1 met with the new director, Gabby Betzko of the Tri-County Solid Waste Board. She is she works for Stearns County. Had a very good conversation with her. And yeah, that was it.
Okay, thanks. I will go. Great River Regional Library Finance Board met, as well as the Board of Trustees. I have been newly assigned to a small group that's going to be working with our collections, looking over our policies and ordinances with how we bring new books to the library and how we deal with people who are wanting books to be taken out of our collection. Also, looking ahead to our budget, we will be looking at a 0% levy increase from the library. Dan Weber's not listening to me right now. So that will be great for our budget. I attended the NACO Western Interstate Region Conference as far as my NACO board appointment. We're still trying to figure out if that WIR group in NACO is appropriate for Minnesota to be a part of. I attended a great session on energy counties that are going through energy system transformation. So it was really pertinent to our county here. Met with my NACO board. It's interesting. Again, thanks for your support in that. During that time was like the last days of the session, so I was on the phone or texting our legislative delegation often. So huge shout out to our legislators that helped us get the appropriations that we're getting. Great Northern Trail site visit was great with the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails people here that helped us get our regional designation, so that's very exciting. They're very impressed with our proposal in our plan. I attended 2 of the all-staff meeting, County Connect meetings, and also recorded a 3rd one for those people that weren't able to be here. So there is a recording out there somewhere. And then also, I'm serving on a panel for the League of Minnesota Cities up in Duluth for their annual conference on board meetings and how to conduct board meetings, challenging board meetings, and things like that. So I've been preparing for that with a host of other people. Schools, townships, cities, and counties are all going to be represented. So I'll get my 2 minutes of fame on a panel in Duluth with 700 people. So stay tuned. That's it.
Okay. Well, let's see. I went to the Towards Zero Death Conference in Baxter. A full 8-hour conference. So I got a few things from that. Traffic fatalities are going back down after the brief uptick in 2020, 2021. However, overall, motorcycles are going up as a percentage of that. The same primary factors still exist. Speed, impairment, and not wearing safety belts. Inattentive driving is still a big factor, and it's important to note that repeat offenders are responsible for a lot of the crashes. We are trying to create an Office of Traffic Safety for Minnesota. That would be good. You want somebody to be looking into these things more full-time. Other areas of the world in this country, stricter speed enforcement. Enforcement's always a big deal. And lower BACs. There's states that are going to a 0.05 blood alcohol content for alcohol, which is a really good idea. We have some very local, effective interjurisdictional traffic enforcement programs with Wright Stearns and the Minnesota State Patrol. Legalization of marijuana is a concern. Right now, there is no established scientific level of impairment for marijuana. We are entirely dependent on the observations of drug recognition evaluators. There's only 300 in Minnesota. We're going to have a lot more once marijuana is legalized. What we have seen in other states, the verified thing is that you will have an increase in driving impairment. You will have an increase in fatal accidents related to the legalization of marijuana. It's just what happens. The likely scenario is we'll spend $5 in total cost when you factor in crashes, enforcement, everything, for every dollar that marijuana taxes bring in. It's not necessarily a positive. And one of the big problems that I see with it personally is that they're going to have a free-for-all for 2 years because we're not going to have any sort of actual legal dispensary set up till 2025, but we're going to have legal marijuana this year. So this was kind of put together without a plan, and I don't see the next 2 years as being particularly positive in that area. And I might seem like I'm harping too much on marijuana accidents, but the worst accident of career, at least for me personally, the one that struck me the most was a marijuana-involved accident that absolutely destroyed a family. So it's a personal thing to an extent. They did get $14.7 million, although they asked for $30 million to put stop arm violation cameras on buses. So hopefully by the end of the summer, 7,000 out of our 12,000 buses in Minnesota are going to have these stop arm violation cameras, so we can get more aggressive going after people that do just blow right by the buses while our kids are moving. I think it's a great deal. We'll probably eventually have to hire more police to deal with this, which is fantastic. To an extent. The all-staff meetings were great. It was good to get out and be able to communicate with some people. I went to 2 of those who might not see us otherwise. The end-of-session webinar has actually already been touched on, which was a good thing to attend. I went to a broadband infrastructure webinar. They talked about the $65 million. It was administered through the several programs. We've got a lot going on that, which is a good we've been working with that a lot here, and this program is really going to make sure that everybody has broadband available to them. I went to the energy transition meeting, which has already been covered. I went on a tour with Commissioner Gray, Dan, and to the Guardian and CMP, to Guardian Company, Guardian Guardian Fleet Services that makes squad cars and other first responder vehicles, and the CMP, which makes attachments for excavators. Just great companies. I mean, it's exactly what you want to see in our area. Both these companies started in the family garage and moved to the point now where they're very good sized concerns. They hire a lot of people, and it's just a great business for this for Sherburne County.
Went to the transition meeting, which is energy transmission meeting, which was also covered already. And with the NACO Rural Action Monthly call, didn't have a whole lot there, but they did talk about, using aerial imaging in county operations, which I think is probably a really good idea and something we can probably work with. And they have a new Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Nestle Silva. I also went to coffee with Mayor Dietz, because I screwed up my schedule and I showed up the same time as Andrew, and I got to go next one too, so that's fine. The notes on the debt ceiling bill, the NACO webinar, that was a good thing to watch. And I did read through the debt ceiling bill also after it had been passed. It's the best parts of it, I guess, that kind of will help us out as it reforms the permitting process for federal infrastructure projects. It's going to be done a lot quicker. It's supposed to be done within two years. There's going to be some caps on discretionary funding, which can ultimately affect the counties. Probably the biggest thing is that it's going to expand work requirements for SNAP and TANF, Temporary Need Assistance for Families, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, encouraging people to reenter the workforce. And being as we do administer those programs through the county in Minnesota, that's something that our people are going to have to be working on. They are pulling back some of the funds that were given out during the pandemic, but that's not the stuff like the direct funding that we get from the counties and the cities, which is a good thing. Not huge cuts in overall spending, but cuts are going to be made through sequestration, so that if somebody goes over their allotted funding, then they're going to get automatic budget cuts, which is probably a good thing. In the area of public comment and stuff like that, probably one of the big things I've been getting a lot of lately, again, part of what came out of the legislature this year is, and a lot of this has to do with the amount of time I spend in the shooting community, is there's a lot of people are still very concerned about Second Amendment sanctuary for the county, and I'd just like to mention that again. That's about all I have right now.
There's an advantage to going last. I think you've touched on everything I think about did. Did the Big Elk Lake Park meeting, which Gina touched on what we talked about, the deconstruction of most of the buildings. I went to the community outreach bus at Cashwise, sat in there and visited with them for a while and watched how that worked. That was really interesting, and I think a huge benefit to the St. Cloud area and to the area that bus reaches. Attended Palmer Township Cleanup Day. They, again, just like all the other townships, had a huge turnout. Sherco Solar groundbreaking, I was involved in that. The County Connects meeting with Andrew, with correctional officers and general staff. And meeting the staff, they're the lifeblood of the county. I think it's huge to interact with the staff and commend them and appreciate everything they do for us. I put on a farm tour for Tyler Rice. Tyler is with the Quad County SWCD thing, and he is their crop specialist, but he's a transplant from Pennsylvania. So he has no connections with anybody, so I took him to about 4 or 5 of the larger producers in Sherburne County, got his foot in the door, got him to meet some of those individuals, which I think was great. He had an intern with him, so they'll be able to use that connection for, his resource to get going within Sherburne County. Attended Transportation Alliance with Rayanne. She already touched on that. Energy Transmission, we touched on that. Greg touched on the Guardian Fleet Safety and CMP attachments. I've been with those two companies when they first moved into Clear Lake Township in the city of Clear Lake. These are two very progressive young owners that put employees and family ahead of everyone, and they're growing, and it shows. What they're doing is just huge for Sherburne County, Clear Lake Township. It's a great deal. They're both really great companies, so that's all I got.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we will move on to recess our regular meeting and take a break. And following the recess, we will be reconvening in our workshops here. Set up here. Okay. So we are recessed. It is 10:34. Let's come back at 10:45. Thank you.
Jim told me he thought